Wine tied her damp hair into a loose bun, the faint fragrance of shampoo clinging to her as she padded barefoot across the polished floorboards. Her husband Jungkook had left early in the morning, as he always did, with nothing more than a clip "I will be late." The same words, the same cold tone, the same absence of warmth that had become her normal over the last 5 years of marriage. Normal, but never less lonely. Her eyes wandered toward the wardrobe in their bedroom, a place she rarely touched except to arrange his neatly pressed shirts and folded trousers. She knew exactly how he liked his clothes perfectly ironed, no wrinkles organized by color. He was meticulous, distant, and as sharp in manner as he was in appearance. "Dada's so serious all the time," she murmured under her breath as she pulled open the wardrobe door. On the bed, her son Arav was sprawled across the blanket with his toys, making two little cars zoom across the sheets while humming his own background music. He was her sunshine, her laughter, her reason to keep the cows alive with stories and colors, even if her husband Jungkook's silence looped like a shadow. "Mama, car go zoom," Arav giggled, showing her his car. Vine smiled, her heart softening as it always did when she looked at him. "Cargo soon? Faster than light, hmm?" He nodded with all the seriousness a 4-year-old could muster, then returned to his play. Her gaze returned to the row of shirts, each one crisp, masculine, and carrying the faint scent of the cologne he always wore. The scent, cedarwood, faint spice, a cool note was sometimes the only reminder that she had a husband at all. A mischievous thought bubbled up inside her. It had started as a whisper, something she wouldn't have dared before, but lately the emptiness had started weighing too much. She wanted to laugh, she wanted to feel. She reached out and slid one of his shirts from the hanger, a pale blue one he often wore to office. It was bowed across the shoulders, longer than her frame, and smelled so distinctly of him that her heart gave an odd twist. "Shall I become Dada for today?" she asked in a mock serious tone, turning toward her son. Arav paused mid-zoom, his eyes lighting up instantly. "Yes, yes, Mama'd be Dada." Vine chuckled and slipped her arms into the shirt. The sleeves dangled far past her wrist, the hem falling halfway to her thighs. She buttoned it clumsily, leaving the top loose. Then she straightened, puffed out her chest, and deepened her voice as much as she could. Arav, why are your toys not in the box?" she said, imitating her husband's clipped, commanding tone. Arav gasped dramatically, then burst into laughter. "It's like Dada," encouraged. Vine folded her arms across her chest, tilted her chin high, and narrowed her eyes, perfectly mimicking the stern expression Jungkook often wore. "Rules are rules. Toys should be in the box, no excuses." Arav rolled on the bed, giggling uncontrollably. "Mama, you look just like him." She put a mock frown. "I'm not Mama, I'm Dada, and Dada never smiles." Her son squealed with laughter, clapping his tiny hands. "Yes, yes, Dada never smiles." The sound of Arav's laughter filled the room, and for a moment Vi let herself laugh too. It was freeing to poke fun at seriousness, to let her son enjoy a softer version of his father through her play. She strutted across the room like she had seen her husband do, pretending to adjust an invisible tie, muttering, "Work, work, always work, important meetings, no time to play." Arav was in stitches now, tears of laughter in his little eyes. "Mama, stop, it's too funny." Wine grinned, her cheeks aching with joy she hadn't felt in a long time. Funny, this is how Dada is every day, so serious like a robot. Robot Dada, Arab squeaked, picking up a toy robot and holding it up. Beep, beep, no smile. They both dissolved into giggles again, and in that laughter, she didn't hear the soft sound of footsteps at the door. The shirt sleeves kept slipping over her hands, but Vine used it to her advantage. She grabbed a rolled up magazine from the table, tucked it under her arm like a briefcase, and strutted around the room with her best imitation of Jungkook's measured steps. Arab, I don't have time for silly games, she declared in a low, more gruff voice. Important emails are waiting, clients, deadlines, quarterly reports. Her son laughed so hard that he fell back against the pillows. Mama, you sound like him. Say the phone thing. Say it. Wine smirked. She knew exactly what Arab meant. She held her imaginary phone to her ear, lifted her chin, and in the exact clip tone her husband used, said, Yes, yes, schedule it for 10 a.m. No delays. I don't care. Just get it done. Araf's laughter exploded again, and this time Vine couldn't hold back her own bubbling giggles. She sank onto the bed beside him, both of them shaking with laughter. Her son's tiny hand clutching her arm. Robot Dada, Robot Dada. Araf chanted, bouncing on the mattress. Wine covered her mouth, her eyes sparkling. She couldn't be mocking her husband like this, especially not in front of their child. But at the same time, she couldn't stop. For once, the house felt alive with joy, with the kind of silliness she craved but never found in the man she had married. Robot Nada never says, I love you, she teased, her voice still deep and robotic. Araf froze for a second, then tilted his head. But Dada loves me, right? The question pierced her heart like a sharp pen. Wine blinked startled. She hadn't expected that. She softened her expression immediately, slipping out of the art, pulling her son into her arms. Of course he does, sweetheart. Dada loves you more than anything in the whole world. He just didn't say it like Mama does. Araf snuggled against her, reassured but still thoughtful. Then maybe he is a robot who loves inside but doesn't say outside. Vine gave a watery laugh, kissing the top of his soft hair. Yes, baby, exactly. A robot who loves inside. The ache in her chest deepened because she wasn't sure if the description applied only to his love for Araf or if it was true for her too. She got up, straightening the oversized shirt and forcing a playful tone back into her voice. All right, young man, Dada says bedtime in 10 minutes. Teeth brushed, toys packed, and no excuses. Araf scrunched his nose. But Mama, Dada, you're smiling. God, she grins sheepishly, then exaggeratedly wiped her smile off her face, replacing it with her husband's usual stony mask. No smiling, Dada never smiles. Araf squealed with laughter again, rolling on the bed. And that's when a faint shift in the air made her pulse. A prickling sensation ran down her spine, that uncanny instinct of being watched. Still chuckling, she turned slowly toward the doorway and froze. Jungkook stood there, leaning against the door frame, one hand shoved into his pocket, the other loosening the knot of his tie. His expression unreadable, his dark eyes sharp, steady, impossible to disappear, were locked on her. For a split second, the entire world seemed to fall silent. Wine's laughter died on her lips. Her cheeks flamed hot, mortification crawling over her skin. The oversized shirt suddenly felt heavy, suffocating. She had been mocking him, acting like him, in front of their son, and he had seen everything. Her heart thudded wildly. She didn't know whether to laugh it off or stammer an apology. Ada was oblivious to the tension, swickled with joy. Dada, Mama was you. She wore your shirt and talked like you. The little boy bounced up and down excitedly, running to his father. See, Dada, she was Robot Dada. Vine squeezed her eyes shut for a brief moment. Dear God, please let the air swallow me right now. Jungkook's gaze flicked from his son's eager face to her, still standing by the bed in his shirt. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He didn't say a word. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Vine's pulse raised. She braced herself for anger, for cold disapproval, but for that sharp tone he reserved for when she crossed an invisible line. But instead, he simply turned to Arav, bent down, and picked him up into his arms. Bedtime, he said softly, his voice calm and controlled. Arav clung to him happily, oblivious to the storm brewing between his parents. But Dada, Mama was so funny. That's enough. He cut in gently but firmly. Bedtime now. And with that, he carried his son toward the bathroom, leaving Vine frozen in place, her face burning, her mind a whirlwind of humiliation and confusion. He stood there in his shirt, her breath shallow, her chest tight. Her heart still echoed with the sound of her son's laughter, but now all she could feel was the weight of her husband's eyes, the silence in his expression. He had seen every word, every gesture, every mockery, and she had no idea what he thought of it. The sound of water running in the bathroom drifted faintly down the hallway. Her husband was helping Arav brush his teeth. The same nightly routine, the same quiet discipline, but tonight everything felt different. Vine stood in the middle of the room, his oversized shirt draped over her like evidence of a crime. Her fingers fumbled at the buttons, tugging them open with trembling haste. By the time she slipped it off and tossed it back on the bed, her cheeks were burning crimson. She quickly pulled on her own nightwear, smoothing her hair as if that would erase what just happened. Her mind raced. Why did I do that? How could I be so careless? It wasn't just sleep play anymore, it had been mockery. She had exaggerated his mannerisms, his seriousness, his coldness, everything he had probably wanted to keep hidden, even from himself. And now he knew. Her stomach churned. What would he say? Would he confront her? Would he snap at her for making fun of him in front of their son? Or worse, would he simply ignore her, adding another icy wall between them? The bathroom door opened. Arav came running out in pajamas, his little feet padding against the floor. Mama, Dada says I have to sleep now. Will you tuck me in? Of course, sweetheart. Vine managed, forcing a smile. Jungkook followed a moment later, his sleeves rolled up, his ties now hanging loose around his neck. He didn't look at her, not directly. Instead, he adjusted the cuff of his shirt, as though the Chinese thread sticking out was infinitely more important than her presence. Her heart sank at his silence. Together, they tucked Arav to bed. The boy snuggled under his blanket, eyes half shut already. Vine brushed his hair back tenderly, while Jungkook stood a little apart, watching quietly. Good night, baby, she whispered. Good night, Mama. Arav murmured, then blinked sleepily at his father. Good night, Robot Dada. Vine's breath caught. Her eyes darted to her husband instantly. For the briefest second, she thought she saw something flicker in his expression. Surprise, maybe hurt, maybe nothing at all. His face smoothed instantly, the same unreadable mask settling back in place. "Good night," he said simply, his tone quiet but steady. Then he switched off the lamp and together they walked out of their son's room. Their walk down the hallway felt heavier than ever. The house, usually so silent, seemed charged tonight like the stillness before a storm. In the dining room, the dinner she had prepared hours ago waited on the table. Rice, dal, sabzi, warm rotis covered with a cloth. She had kept it simple, knowing he had come home late. Without a word, he took his seat. She followed slowly, her palms damp with nerves. The clink of cutlery was the only sound between them. She dared a glance at him. His face was calm, expressionless as always. But now every movement of his hand felt exaggerated to her, the way he spooned rice onto his plate, the way he avoided her gaze, the way his jaw flexed when he chewed. Her heart pounded louder than the silence. Finally, unable to bear it, she whispered, I'm sorry." He didn't look up. For what? The question was soft, but it cut deeper than if he had raised his voice. Her throat tightened. "For earlier, I shouldn't have. I was just playing with Arab. I didn't mean to." She trailed off, unsure of what exactly she wanted to say. That she hadn't meant to mock him, that she hadn't meant to expose how lonely his coldness made her feel, that she hadn't meant to laugh at the walls he built around himself. He set his spoon down slowly, his eyes finally lifting to meet hers, dark, steady, unreadable. "You don't have to explain yourself," he said evenly. That should have been a relief, but it wasn't. His tone wasn't forgiving, it was dismissive, like her apology didn't even matter. Wine looked down at her plate, her appetite gone. She picked up at her food silently, her chest heavy. The silence stretched again. She wanted him to say more, to call her Evan, to react. Anything would be better than this calm, suffocating void. But he didn't. He ate quietly, every moment precise, controlled. Finally, when the silence grew unbearable, she blurted softly, "Did it bother you?" He paused his motion. "What? That I acted like you? That I..." Her voice faltered. That Araf laughed. For a moment, he said nothing. His gaze rested on her, unblinking, as if searching for something in her face. Then he looked away, his jaw tightening almost imperfectly. "You made him happy, that's what matters." Her breath caught again. She wanted to ask, "And what about you?" But she couldn't. She didn't dare. The rest of dinner passed in silence, broken only by the clink of dishes. Later, when she cleared the table, the washed plates, she felt his presence beside her. Not close enough to touch, but near enough that her skin prickled with awareness. "Don't stay up too late," he said quietly. She froze, sponge in hand, the water running over her fingers. She wanted to run around to catch his expression, but by the time she did, he was already walking away, his both shoulders retreating down the hallway. Wine stood there alone in the kitchen, her heart aching with confusion. She had made her son laugh. She had made herself laugh for once, but at what cost? Jungkook's silence lingered in the air long after he disappeared into their bedroom. At bedroom, the ceiling fan hummed softly above them. It steadily was the only sound in the bedroom. Wine sat on her side of the bed, her knees drawn up, her fingers fiddling with the edge of her nightdress. The room smelled faintly of his cologne, a scent that lingered from his shirt tossed neatly over a chair, the same shirt he had dared to wear earlier that evening. Her heart still hadn't slowed. He was at the desk scrolling through something on his laptop. His posture was as rigid as ever. Back straight, shoulders squared, face illuminated by the pale blue glow of the screen. He looked like a man carved from stone, precise, unyielding, untouched by the chaos swirling in her chest. She wanted to speak, to explain, to lighten the air, but every time she opened her mouth, the words caught in her throat. What was she supposed to say? I wasn't mocking you, I was just trying to make Arav laugh. I only did it because I am starving for the warmth you never show. The silence stretched until it felt unbearable. Finally, he closed the laptop with a soft click and turned off the desk lamp. He stood, unbuttoned his shirt calmly, methodically, and slipped into his nightclothes. His movements were quiet, efficient, deliberate the same way he did everything. He slid into bed beside her, pulling the blanket over himself without a word. Her pulse stuttered. This was her chance. If she didn't speak now, the silence would smother her. Jenko, she whispered. He made a faint sound of acknowledgement, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. About earlier, she hesitated, her voice trembling. I didn't mean to whine. His voice was low, firm, cutting across her words. She froze. He turned his head slightly toward her, his face half shadowed in the dim light. You don't have to explain, like I said before. The same words was at dinner, the same dismissive tone, but at this time there was something else in his eyes, something flickering beneath the surface. Her throat frightened. It feels like I do. A buzz. His gaze lingered on her, unreadable. Then he turned back to the ceiling. You made him laugh. That's enough. That's not the point, she blurted, surprising even herself. He stiffened almost imperfectly, his brows tightening. She bit her lip, her courage trembling but refusing to vanish. I wasn't trying to mock you. I wanted Arif to smile. I wanted something light in the house. You are always so. She trailed off, searching for the right word. Serious. The silence after her words was deafening. Her chest tightened. Maybe she had gone too far. Maybe she had shattered something fragile by daring to point it out. He exhaled slowly, his jaw tight. Do you think I don't notice? She blinked, startled. What? His voice was quite low, but laced with an edge she rarely heard. Do you think I don't notice how you look at me? How you compare the way I am with the way you wished I would be? Do you think I don't see the disappointment in your eyes every time I walk through that door? Her breath caught. She stared at him, her lips parted, her heart thudding wildly. I don't. Yes, you do. His gaze cut to her, sharp and steady. You think I don't laugh. You think I don't smile. You think I don't. His voice faltered for a fraction of a second, then steadied. Feel. The last word hung heavy in the air. Wine's eyes stung. She had imagined his coldness meant indifference, distance, a lack of care. But now, for the first time, she heard something else in his tone. Hurt. I never said that, she whispered. You didn't have to, he murmured. Silence fell again, thicker this time, weighted with unspoken truth. Her throat worked. She wanted to reach out to bridge the gap, but her hands lay frozen on the blanket, heavy as stone. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the faint shadows on the ceiling, her mind replaying his words. You think I don't feel? She thought of the man she had married, the one who had once been warm, attentive, and playful in the early days. She hadn't been like this when they first met. She remembered their engagement, the way he had teased her gently, the way his eyes had softened when she smiled. There had been a spark then, something alive. So, When had it vanished? Was it after their wedding, when responsibilities and expectations crushed the space for laughter? Or after his father's death, when he had buried himself in work and never emerged? Or was it her? Had she failed to reach him, failed to give him the comfort he never asked for but maybe needed? Her chest ached with questions she didn't know how to answer. Beside her, head's breathing was steady, deep, controlled, as if he could command even sleep the way he'd commanded everything else. But she wondered, was it really sleep? Or just another mask he wore even here in the dark? The next morning, the house felt different, lighter for Arav, heavier for her. She prepared breakfast while her son chattered happily about school, cartoons, and his little world of endless wonders. Jungkook sat at the table, crisp in his suit, scrolling through his phone between sips of coffee. It was the same routine as every morning, but after late last night, every silence between them felt sharper. At one point, Arav laughed at something on his plate, a funny shaped piece of a paratha, and exclaimed, "Look, Mama, it's like a star." Wine smiled and leaned in, indulging his joy. Jungkook's eyes flicked up, just for a second, watching them, and in that fleeting glance, she saw it, a softness, a longing, a crack in the armor. It vanished the moment he looked back at his phone. But for wine, it was enough to make her heart ache with something new. The day moved on its own ordinary rhythm: breakfast, the rush of school bags and lunch boxes, Jungkook's quiet departure with a curt "I will be late." Ordinary, but for wine, nothing felt ordinary anymore. Every glance from him replayed in her mind, especially that look from breakfast, that fleeting softness she hadn't seen in years. It unsettled her. It made her wonder if she had imagined it. Flashback 5 years ago. When they first married, Jungkook had not been like this. She could still remember their wedding night, awkward yet tender, his voice quieter than the chaos outside, his words hesitant but gentle. He had laughed then, a real laugh, not loud, but warm enough to ease her nervousness. She remembered the early mornings as newlyweds, when he had teased her about sleeping late. She remembered his hand resting lightly against hers at family gatherings, the protective way his eyes searched for her in a crowded room. There had been a man behind the polished exterior, a man who could smile, who could tease, who could feel. But somewhere along the way, the man had vanished. Maybe it was after his father passed away unexpectedly. Wine had seen that grief harden in his face, seen the way he buried himself in work, refusing to grieve openly. It was as if he had locked his emotions in a vault and thrown away the key. And with every passing year, the walls seemed to thicken, the walls cold and impenetrable, until she was left with a husband who was present in body, absent in spirit. And yet last night, when he had said, "You think I don't feel?" something had cracked, something was still there. That evening, when Jungkook returned from work, Wine was in the living room, helping Arav build a tower of blocks. "Higher, Mama, higher!" Arav squealed, carefully stacking another piece. She steadied the tower with her hand, laughing softly. "Be careful, baby. If you go too high, it will fall." "It won't fall. Dada will help," Arav declared confidently, his eyes lighting up as soon as he saw his father step inside. Jungkook paused at the doorway, loosening his tie. His eyes flicked from his wife to his son. "Help with what?" "Our tower. It has to be taller than me," Arav exclaimed, rushing to him with eager hands tugging at his trousers. "Come, Dada." Wine's heart still. Jungkook rarely played. He was the provider, the serious one, the man who nodded at their son's chatter but rarely joined them. She half expected him to deflect with his usual later Arab, "I'm tired." But tonight, Jungkook surprised her. He crouched down, his tall frame folding beside the small toy. His large hands picked up one of the blocks, examining it as though it were a business proposal. Then, with steady precision, he placed it on top of the tower. Arav's face lit up. "See, Mama, Dada helped." Wine blinked, taken aback. She hadn't expected this. Jungkook's expression remained serious, but there was something gentler in the way he handed the next block to Arav, guiding him wordlessly. The tower grew taller, wobbling slightly under its own weight. Arav squealed with excitement, and Wine's laughter bubbled out, unable to be contained. For a fleeting second, she thought she saw the corner of Jungkook's lips twitch. Not quite a smile, but close. Her heart tightened. Later that night, after Arav had gone to bed, she found herself in the kitchen, pouring warm tea into a cup. She heard footsteps behind her, heavy, measured. She turned, startled to see Jungkook leaning against the doorway, watching her quietly. For once, he wasn't holding his phone. "Tea?" he asked, his tone casual. She nodded slowly. "For me, can I make you for you too?" A pause, then yes. The simple word caught her off guard. Usually he would have said no, automatically, too absorbed in his routines to indulge. She poured another cup, her hands steady but her heart fluttering. She set it on the table, sliding it toward him. They sat across from each other, the kitchen light soft, the silence between them different tonight. Not sharp, not heavy, just tentative. He lifted the cup to kiss her lips and set it down again. His gaze rested on her for a moment before drifting away. Wine swallowed. She wanted to ask him what he was thinking. She wanted to bring up last night, to pry open that crack she had glimpsed. But before she could, he spoke. "Arav shouldn't call me that." "Call you what?" She blinked. "Robot Dada." His jaw tightened slightly. Her heart lurked. The words hit harder than she expected. He had heard her, and it mattered to him. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't teach him that. He just," her thought tightened. "He just notices." His eyes flicked to her, steady, unreadable, but she thought she saw something. There, a shadow of hurt, a quiet admission of pain. "I'm not a robot," he said softly. Wine's chest ached. "I know." The silence that followed was fragile, delicate, like glass that might shatter with the wrong word. The night was colder than usual. Monsoon rains had started early, the steady patter against the windows filling the silence of their bedroom. Wine stirred under the blanket, restless. She had drifted off late, her mind tangled with fragments of their kitchen conversation. His quiet words, "I'm not a robot." It had been the first time in years that he had admitted to feeling anything, yet it left her more unsettled than comforted. Was it a confession, a plea, or just a denial? She turned on her side, watching the outline of her husband's face in the dim light filtering through the curtains. He was asleep, or pretending to be, as he sometimes did when he didn't want to talk. His features were calm, his breathing steady, his voice as intact as ever. She sighed and closed her eyes. A sudden sound jolted her awake, a cough, soft but sharp. Her eyes snapped open. Beside her, Jungkook stirred too, sitting up immediately. The sound came again, a small, pained cough from Arav's room. In an instant, both parents were on their feet. They rushed down the hall together, hearts pounding. Arav sat up in the bed, his tiny shoulders shaking. His face flushed, his little hand clutched his chest as he coughed again, eyes watery with discomfort. "Mama," he whimpered. Vine hurried to his side, gathering him in her arms. "Shh, it's okay, baby. Mama is here." Jungkook was already at the bedside, his palm resting on Araf's forehead. His jaw tightened. "He is burning," panic surged in Vine's chest. "We need to get the thermometer and water and—" "I'll get it." His voice was firm, controlled, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. He moved quickly, faster than she had ever seen him, fetching medicine, a wet cloth, water. His hands were steady as he placed the thermometer under Araf's arm, but the tension in his shoulders told another story. The reading beeped. Vine's stomach dropped. Jungkook pressed the cool cloth gently on Araf's forehead, his large hand tender against the boy's small frame. "It's just a fever," he said, as though reassuring himself as much as her. "He will bring it down." Ara whimpered again, clinging to both of them. "Don't go, stay." Vine's heart clenched. She kissed his damp hair. "We are not going anywhere, sweetheart. We will stay right here." For the first time in years, she and Jungkook sat together on the same side of the bed, their arms around the same child, their worry entwined. The hours stretched long into the night. They took turns sponging Araf's forehead, coaxing him to sip water, whispering comfort. At one point, Araf stirred weakly, his eyes half open. "Dada?" Jungkook leaned closer immediately. "Yes, Araf?" "Don't be robot," the boy mumbled, drifting back into his restless sleep. The words hit the room like a lightning bolt. Vine's breath caught, her eyes flicking to her husband. His face was stricken, his usually composed mask cracking. He looked at their son for a long silent moment, then down at his own hands. His voice broke, rougher than she had ever heard. He stopped, swallowed hard, then tried again. "I don't want him to see me like that. Not him." Jungkook's throat tightened. "Then why do you?" His eyes lifted to hers, raw in the dim light. "Because it's easier." Her heart ached. She had waited years to hear even this small truth. "Easier than what?" she whispered. "Easier than losing," he said hoarsely. "Easier than feeling. If I let myself—" He broke off, his jaw trembling slightly before he clenched it again. "When my father died, I promised myself I wouldn't collapse, that I would be strong for everyone, always. No weakness, no softness, only control." Vine's eyes burned with tears. She reached for his hand instinctively. For a moment, she expected him to pull away, as he always did, but he didn't. His fingers trembled under hers, then slowly closed around her hand. "I thought if I kept everything locked inside," he whispered, "I could protect myself, protect you, protect him. But all I have done is become the robot he sees." His sob caught in Vine's throat. "Jungkook." Her other hand rose to his cheek, her touch gentle, hesitant. He didn't flinch. He leaned into it just barely, as though starved for the warmth he had denied himself for so long. "You are not a robot," she whispered, echoing his own words back to him. "You are a man who has been carrying too much all alone. You don't have to be anymore." His eyes closed, his breath shuddering. For the first time in years, his world crumbled, and in that quiet, fragile moment, with their feverish child nestled between them, Jungkook finally let go. Not with loud sobs, not with broken words, but with the simple act of holding her hand tightly, of letting his forehead rest against hers, of allowing himself to be human again. By morning, Ara's fever had lowered, exhausted but relieved. They tucked him into fresh sheets, watching him sleep peacefully. Wine leaned back against the headboard, weary. Jungkook sat beside her, their son's small hand clasped in his. For once, the silence wasn't heavy, it was tender. After a long while, he spoke softly, his voice rough with fatigue. When you wore my shirt, I thought I would be angry, but seeing you and him laugh, it made me realize how much I have been missing, how much I have taken away from both of you. Wine's eyes softened. You don't have to be perfect, Jungkook. You just have to be here with us. He turned to her, his gaze finally unguarded. I want to try. Her breath caught. It was the smallest of promises, but the one she had been waiting for all along. She smiled through her tears, reaching for his hand. Then we will try together. He held her gaze for a long moment. Then slowly his lips curved, not much, not enough, a real smile. And for the first time in years, Wine felt the warmth of hope blooming in their home again. A week later, Arab sat cross-legged on the living room floor. Crayons scattered everywhere, Wine folded laundry nearby, while Jungkook, still in his work shirt, tie loosened, knelt beside his son. Look, Dada, I drew you, Arab said proudly, holding up a scribbled stick figure in a suit and tie. Jungkook raised an eyebrow. That's me? Yes, but this one smiles. Wine laughed, her heart swelling as she watched her husband lift twist upward again. Then I will have to keep practicing, Jungkook said softly, ruffling Arab's hair. And this time, when laughter filled the house, he was part of it too.